2016 Cheez-It 355 at the Glen. The 2016 Cheez-It 355 at the Glen was a NASCAR Sprint Cup Series stock car race held on August 7, 2016 at Watkins Glen International in Watkins Glen, New York. Contested over 90 laps on the 2.45-mile 3.94 km road course, it was the 22nd race of the 2016 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season. Denny Hamlin won the race, his second of the season. Joey Logano finished second. Brad Keselowski, A.J. Allmendinger and Tony Stewart rounded out the top five. The race had 9 lead changes among 8 different drivers, 8 cautions for 20 laps and 2 red flags for 30 minutes and 3 seconds. Report. Background. Watkins Glen International, nicknamed the Glen, is an automobile racetrack located in Watkins Glen, New York at the southern tip of Seneca Lake. It was long known around the world as the home of the Formula One United States Grand Prix, which it hosted for 20 consecutive years 1961–1980, but the site has been home to road racing of nearly every class, including the World Sports Car Championship, Trans Am Can-Am NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, the International Motor Sports Association. Initially, public roads in the village were used for the racecourse. In 1956, a permanent circuit for the race was built. In 1968, the race was extended to 6 hours, becoming the 6 Hours of Watkins Glen. The circuit's current layout has more or less been the same since 1971, although a chicane was installed at the uphill S's in 1975 to slow cars through these corners, where there was a fatality during practice at the 1973 United States Grand Prix. The chicane was removed in 1985, but another chicane called the Inner Loop was installed in 1992 after a fatal accident during the previous year's NASCAR Winston Cup event. The circuit is known as the Mecca of North American road racing and is a very popular venue among fans and drivers. The facility is currently owned by International Speedway Corporation. Entry list. The preliminary entry list for the race included 40 cars and was released on August 1, 2016 at 9:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Practice. First practice. Martin Truex Jr. was the fastest in the first practice session with a time of 1:09.513 and a speed of 126.883 mph, 204.198 km/h. Final practice. A.J. Allmendinger was the fastest in the final practice session with a time of 1:09.149 and a speed of 127.551 mph, 205.273 km/h. Qualifying. Carl Edwards scored the pole for the race with a time of 1:09.689 and a speed of 126.562 mph, 203.682 km/h. He said afterwards that the track is a little strange. It started out really slippery the first run, but just really proud of my guys and everybody on this Stanley Toyota team. Dave Wilson from TRD Toyota Racing Development, president, just came down. They are a huge part of this. My teammates, they are really fast. Bush's qualifying results. Races. First half. Under clear blue New York skies, Carl Edwards led the field to the green flag at 2:53 p.m. The race proceeded orderly for the first 5 laps before Jeff Gordon sent Austin Dillon spinning in the inner loop on the 5th lap. The race continued under green. Debris in the outer loop brought out the first caution of the race on lap 11. The debris was a piece of hose. A few cars opted to pit under the caution. Eric Almirola and Casey Kahn were tagged for their crews being over the wall too soon, and Regan Smith was tagged for speeding. All 3 restarted from the tail end of the field. The race restarted on lap 16. Michael Annett overshot the inner loop, but continued on and was subsequently forced to serve a pass-through penalty. A number of cars began pitting on lap 22. Jimmy Johnson was tagged for an uncontrolled tire and speeding. Ryan Blaney was tagged for speeding. Both were forced to serve a pass-through penalty. Edwards pitted from the lead on lap 26 and handed the lead to Martin Truex Jr. Edwards was tagged for an outside tire violation and A.J. Allmendinger was tagged for speeding. Both were forced to serve pass-through penalties. Truex pitted on lap 27 and handed the lead to Joey Logano. He pitted on lap 33 and handed the lead to Danica Patrick. He was tagged for speeding on pit road and was forced to serve a pass-through penalty. She made her stop at lap 45, and the lead cycled to Kyle Busch. Second half. The second caution of the race flew on lap 47 for a rogue tire on pit road. It came from the No. 83 of Matt DiBenedetto. Kurt Busch opted not to pit under the caution and assumed the lead. Chris Buescher and Paul Menard were tagged for their crew's throwing equipment and restarted the race from the tail end of the field. The race restarted on lap 53. Logano passed Busch climbing the S's to retake the lead. The third caution of the race flew on the same lap for a multi-car wreck on the shot chute. Exiting the outer loop, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got loose and slid across the track into the guardrail. He bounced back and was T-boned by Johnson. Dillon, trying to avoid him, got into Greg Biffle and sent him into the guardrail. The cars started checking up in front of me and they all moved out of the way, and the 17 Stenhouse was sitting there. Stopped, Johnson said. I remember seeing a door number, and I was so thankful it was the passenger side door and not the driver's side door, because I plowed him. I really hit the car hard. I was afraid that I might have injured him, but thankfully he's okay and everybody is all right. Johnson would go on to finish 40th, his first last-place finish of his career. The red flag was displayed for cleanup on the track. After 13 minutes and 19 seconds, it was lifted and the race was continued under caution. The race restarted with 34 laps to go with Brad Keselowski in the lead. The fourth caution of the race flew for a multi-car wreck in the outer loop. It started when Ryan Newman got loose and turned David Ragan around, and also collected Clint Bowyer, Edwards, and Alex Kennedy. The race restarted with 31 laps to go. Landon Cassill went through the grass in the inner loop and spun out. The race remained green, but then the fifth caution of the race came out with 26 laps to go for debris in the inner loop. The race restarted with 23 laps to go. The sixth caution of the race came out with 15 laps to go for Kennedy losing an engine on the front stretch. The race restarted with 10 laps to go. Keselowski got in too hot into turn 1 and went into the runoff area. He lost the lead to Denny Hamlin as the seventh caution of the race flew for a two-car spin at the bottom of the S's involving DiBenedetto and Newman. The race restarted with 7 laps to go. The eighth caution of the race flew for a multi-car wreck in the outer loop. Exiting the inner loop, Buster's car threw up a rooster tail of smoke and caused Menard to slow down. Kevin Harvick slowed down, rammed into him, got turned by Brian Scott, and was rammed by Ragan. The red flag was displayed for the second time. After 16 minutes and 44 seconds, it was lifted and the race was continued under caution. The race restarted with 4 laps to go. Exiting turn 11 on the final lap, Keselowski got into the back of Truex and sent him spinning, at which point Rick Allen yelled out aggressive "goes around." Keselowski said after the race that he went high and the 78 went high, and by then I was already deep in the corner and got into him and turned him. That was really unfortunate and the last thing I wanted to see this track here. When you drive into the corner, you commit, and sometimes you don't know what will happen when you commit. The last thing I wanted to do was turn him. Truex said that what happened was definitely unfortunate. I wish we could have seen what would have happened when we got to the start-finish line. I felt like I maybe had winner Denny Hamlin squared up a little bit off turn 11 and maybe could have drag raced him to the line. It'd have been fun to see, but it was all not to be with getting hit in the left rear. It's unfortunate. Allmendinger hopped the curb, hit Larson, and sent him crashing into the inside wall. Our last corner there, racing with Kyle, I can't sorry enough sick, Allmendinger said after the race. It doesn't help the case. I spun him out. I didn't mean to spin him out. The No. 78 was spinning, and I was starting to get my nose under Kyle to try to drag race him to the checkered. He was turning to come back down, but it was my fault. For fourth place it would be different if we were battling for the win, but I just hate it for him. It's not going to help to say sorry. Larson responded by saying Allmendinger had already ran me down to the front stretch wall once with about 15 to go or so. Pretty dumb move right there too, but I was the smarter one racing for points. Lifted, could have wrecked him but didn't. I don't know. He wrecked me earlier in the year at Vegas. He has ran me hard, but we always race pretty well. Hamlin was ahead of all this and scored the victory. Post-race. Driver comments. Race results. Race summary. Lead changes, 9 among different drivers. Cautions/laps, 8 for 20T, or 20T or 20T. Red flags, 2 for 30 minutes and 3 seconds. Time of race, 2 hours, 27 minutes and 48 seconds. Average speed, 89.513 miles per hour, 144.57 km/h. Media. Television. NBC Sports assigned the race to USA Network. As a result of Summer Olympic coverage on the primary channels used by the NBC Universal Group during the time, USA also carried the Mid-Ohio Xfinity race and Premier League matches that typically air on NBC, NBCSN, or CNBC. Rick Allen, Jeff Burton, and Steve Letarte had the call in the booth for the race. Dave Burns, Parker Kligerman, Mike Massaro, and Marty Snyder reported from pit lane during the race. It was the first NASCAR race broadcast on USA since 1984, but the first under Comcast ownership and under the NBC Sports banner. It is expected that USA will carry races in 2020 and 2024, as under the 2015 NASCAR television contract, the same conflict with the Olympics will happen. When Martin Truex Jr. spun on the last lap, it was made famous when Rick Allen made the call "aggressive goes around." It has become a meme in the NASCAR community ever since then. Radio. Motor Racing Network had the radio call for the race, which was simulcast on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Standings after the race. References ==